I absolutely hate when instructors assign a reading assignment that's pretty long. And I've read it, I've done all of the little questions, I outlined it myself, and they don't touch it in class. They don't even acknowledge the fact that they've assigned it. They said, oh, okay. And so that infuriates me because I put that effort and time, and I don't even have anything to show for it.
Finding out that, they said read the chapter for the class, and you go and read the whole chapter and you don't even discuss anything that you read.
Yeah.
And so it's hard. I mean, I find that for a lot of my classes this semester than I did in the past, but that's what keeps me from reading. It's like, okay, why am I going to read when we're not even talking about it?
Yeah.
I saw that like some classes I'm taking, the textbook is not related to the exam, and even like you just get the test home and we don't have tests for the book. Like normally is that we don't use the book at all.
I've had classes before where it is entirely lecture. I mean, there is nothing, you don't talk about the book at all. I took a class, for instance, last semester where the book was $200 and we never opened it. We never learned from it, and the school wouldn't buy it back from me, so that's kind of annoying.
What gives me the most trouble is when they give you assigned readings, but then they never talk about it again. Like, they're just like, read this on your own, but we're not going to talk about it ever. But it will be on the test, but we're not going to talk about it.
When, I don't know, like it feels like when the instructor doesn't actually use the book that's used for the class, as well as maybe even, not use it for discussion if there's, discussion points in the class, because it just makes me feel like, well, I have this knowledge and it's just going to waste. I want to tell people about it, or let's talk about it. What's on the mind and what we're spending our time on for class. And I don't really like that. That's not helpful.
The most trouble I get is when they assign like a reading assignment, and I'll read it, and it doesn't really flow with what we're talking about in class that week or the week or anything really that we're talking about in class. It's kind of it's like parallel, but it's just kind of a tangent, and it doesn't really fit with the theme of the class. I don't like it when they do that. I've had that happen a lot, and then I don't really get into the reading because I know that they're not going to talk about it.
It's not helpful when they assign a reading assignment and then they never mention it in class. Like, they assign something and it has nothing to do with the lecture, or they assign something and then it's like on the test, but we've never mentioned it, because then it's not something I focused on and I don't do well on those tests. So yeah, definitely, although we're supposed to read by ourselves independently, I really enjoy it when teachers talk about the reading and kind of summarize it, because then it clarifies things that I didn't understand reading it the first time.
Stick with the book. Stick to the book. Almost all the textbooks seem like they have questions that are risen at the end of the chapter that if they're in the textbook, everybody can pull that out and have it in front of them. I think it'll stick more, especially when they're going through the chapter. Even be made aware of the questions before the chapter's even read. Have the teacher go over, the instructor go over those questions, or even the key terms in the back, because most of the key terms, if you don't know a lot of those, a lot of the chapter's not going to make a lot of sense.
Like, discussing what we're going to read beforehand would be helpful. So like, oh, you're going to read this, it's about this and this, here are some points about it. I'd like you to think about that while you're reading. I like it when teachers do that. I've only had a few teachers that do that, but it really helps me.
To really break down the chapter, or what exactly that we're supposed to be learning about in the chapter, so when it comes to the assignments, we get really the key points of what exactly our instructor wanted us to do. Yeah, pretty much an outline of exactly just the main ideas to look for, so we could further ourselves in our knowledge with that chapter or with that class.
Probably just give us like a real outline, like not so much like they should give us the facts of what you actually want us, like what they actually want us to learn, because there's so much stuff in the textbooks, it's kind of just like, how are we supposed to know what is the most important things that you want us to learn? Yes, you want us to have all this information, but what is the most important things that the teacher feels that they need to learn in order to do well in your class?
I don't know, study guides before you get the reading assignment, or like before you're supposed to do the reading, can be really helpful. If they give you, if the professor says, okay, you know, I've read this chapter obviously already before I teach the class, these are the things in this chapter that I think are relevant to your level of learning and what you need to know for this part of your education. And they write down like maybe 10 or maybe 20 or whatever, however many points they think are really important for us to get at this point in our education, and say, okay, take this and look at it before you read the material, know that this is what you should be paying attention to, and then to have that and go into the reading, especially if it's a dry book, is really, really, really helpful. Really, really helpful, and I'm much more likely to get into the reading in that way.
Just be more attentive to your students. Just understand that they have a lot of other stuff going on. And reading is very scary for a lot of people. I love it, but a lot of people are like, oh, reading. So maybe try to find other ways to engage your students besides assigning them 200 pages to read.
I think if it's just less reading, you know, if you have like a lot of reading, I'm a slow reader, and sometimes I have to reread things over and over again. And so if I get too much, I get overwhelmed, and then I just start getting all, you know, flustered about it, and it makes it even worse to understand what you're reading that way under those circumstances.
Not beating around the bush, pretty much. That's pretty much what I want to say. Like, get to the point, and then just let's get it over with.
My professors have engaged me in the reading process by showing passion and interest in what they're teaching. Like, if I see one of my professors just completely nerd out about this weird thing, then I think it's interesting to go and see what they find so exciting about it, and it's usually something pretty cool.
One thing that I really love that the teachers do here is we have to read a chapter each week, and then when we come back to school from the weekend, the teacher gives us a quiz. And so I love that because it kind of forces me to read. And it's not like 20 questions or 10 questions. It's just like 5 questions, and it could be on anything. So you have to read it. And I don't mean it in a bad way, but it makes me read it and actually, look through everything. So it helps me a lot.
Worksheets and reading packets, I guess. And it sounds weird, but like questions, yeah, like packets that have like questions that are going to be on the test or that pertain to what's going to be on the test. Those are really helpful just because you write them down, so you have to read, and then you can use them as study guides later, so that's helpful.
Homework packets, those are very helpful. Usually homework assignments that have a lot of questions, maybe like a multi-chapter sort of homework assignment, maybe 1 or 2 chapters, asking very detailed questions that you need the book to answer them, not just the lecture notes.
Worksheets are very great, very efficient when they ask certain questions about how they would pertain to your life, like what would you do, or how would you react, or just anything like that. That way it kind of gets you thinking and it applies the material to your own life, not just, it doesn't make it something so distant.
Well, definitely PowerPoints are very common, I find, in lecture, and some of the professors will do kind of like an outline in the PowerPoint that goes over the material that we're supposed to be reading and learning about, and kind of tie it together, and that's helpful also, especially if they use outside examples, things that aren't in the textbooks, but things that maybe they themselves, as learned people in these different fields, feel are relevant to the conversation that's being had in the textbooks and in class. Even if it's not a conversation, if they make it feel that way, that's really helpful.
When they discuss what we read, when they are interactive with the students and ask questions and opinions, and we really have a dialogue going, that is really helpful for me.
Because when I'll take a lecture class, like a history class or a poli-sci class, the teacher will talk, and I'll listen, and I'll read, and I kind of understand it, but I don't like get as deep into the reading as I do in like a class that would be more discussion based. Like I was in a psychology class where the teacher would talk, and then other students would talk, and then we'd all like take our turns like responding to the questions. It was very fun, and I really got into the reading because I'd read, and then we'd have the discussion, and then I'd read it again to see what I'd missed.
Discussing the topics that we're going over in class more than reading the book by myself, because like for some reason like I read the book, I could read like a whole entire chapter and just be like, what the hell did I read? But when I go and talk to people, like that's the reason why I like the tutorial centers, because we get different people going in there, like different students and a tutor in there helping us out and talking differently or talking or explaining the subject a lot more again than what the teacher said. Would be cool, which is cool.
In-class discussions, because if you get everyone in the class, and I'm like just massive in-class discussions where it's kind of like it's hostile to a point to where everyone has like their own side or their own view, so it's more of like a debate to where, and if you get everyone in the class into it, then I view that as like one of the best things, because then you have everybody working like together, and you just start building upon yourself, and the information sticks better because you remember, oh, I was arguing with that fool for 30 minutes and everything, and it's like I'm not gonna forget that whole conversation,